All right, we are now streaming live on YouTube. This is the preliminary hearing. State of Georgia versus Israel Abonse, charged in warrant number 2023 CW 55486, kidnapping.
Hey, how y'all doing?
CW 55492, burglary. Representing the state is Attorney Cheryl Freeman. Representing the defendant is Attorney Rogers. Attorney Freeman, your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Rosario, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony about to provide in the matter of state of Georgia versus Israel Abonse will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
You can lower your hand. Please tell us your name and how you're employed.
I'm Detective Rosario with the Forest Park Police Department.
How long have you worked with the Forest Park Police Department?
Going on 2.5 years.
And sir, did you work in any other law enforcement capacity prior to joining the Forest Park Police Department?
Yes, I worked in Jonesboro Police Department.
So in total, how many years of law enforcement experience do you have?
6.
Sir, were you working with the Forest Park Police Department on, on October 28th of 2023?
Yes, I was.
On that particular day, did you respond to 905 Kennesaw Drive in Forest Park in reference to a kidnapping?
Yes, ma'am.
When you arrived at that location, who did you speak with?
I spoke to the officers on scene.
Okay. And about how many officers were already on the scene?
When I got there was 2 officers on scene.
And did they give you any information about what happened, or did you go and speak to the alleged complainant?
I spoke to the officers. They gave me a brief summary. Then I went to speak to the reporting party.
And who was the reporting party?
Mr. Jeffrey.
Is that Jeffrey Knowles?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, is Mr. Knowles the owner of this residence?
Yes, ma'am.
Who all lives at the residence?
It was Mr. Jeffrey, his wife, and at that time, Ms. Rodriguez.
Did Ms. Rodriguez, did she have her own room? Was she renting there? What kind of setup was that?
She had her own room in there. From my understanding, talked to Mr. Jeffrey. She was basically Mr. Jeffrey's wife, caregiver. She took care of his wife.
Okay. What did Mr. Knowles tell you that happened on this day?
He stated that a male came to the door asking for Ms. Rodriguez by her nickname, Chica. He opened the door. He said, "Give me a minute. I'll go get her." The male asked to use the restroom. He said, "Okay, go use the restroom." Upon the male going to the restroom, he also went to go get Ms. Rodriguez. Upon Ms. Rodriguez coming to the front door, he told me that she seen Mr. Abonse, and that's when she ran back inside.
She ran back inside of her room?
And inside the house.
Inside of the house, okay.
Yes.
What happened after Ms. Rodriguez ran back inside the house?
Mr. Jeffrey stated that Mr. Abonse ran inside the house and grabbed Ms. Rodriguez.
Were they in the living room or the hallway? Where did he say they were?
They said it was in between the living room and the hallway, going to the rooms.
Where was Mr. Knowles during this time?
In the living room.
He was able to see everything that was going on between Mr. Abonse and Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes, ma'am. He even tried to intervene, and that's when Mr. Abonse basically shoved him out the way.
What did Mr. Knowles tell you what Mr. Abonse did after he grabbed Ms. Rodriguez?
He slammed her against the wall and basically dragged her out the house.
Did he describe how Mr. Abonse dragged Ms. Rodriguez out the house?
No. He just said he just removed her out the house.
Did he indicate whether Mr. Abonse had any weapons?
No, he didn't.
What was Ms. Rodriguez doing during this time?
During the time of the tussle, or?
Yes. Was she screaming, or what was her demeanor?
No, for Mr. Jeffrey, he stated that she basically didn't want to go with him, was basically pulling away.
You stated that, I guess Mr. Knowles stated Mr. Abonse slammed Ms. Rodriguez on the wall. Was there any damage to the wall?
No, ma'am.
Was there any video, of what happened between Mr. Abonse and Ms. Rodriguez?
No, there's no video, but there was a witness that observed the whole incident occur.
What was that witness's name?
Mr. Lenny,
I'm sorry?
Lanny, I believe.
Lenny?
Yes.
Okay. Did Mr. Lenny reside at the location as well?
No, he lived across the street.
How did Mr. Lenny state that he was able to see what happened?
He stated that he saw Mr. Abonse. He knows him by Junior. Forcibly grab Ms. Rodriguez by the arm and force her inside the vehicle.
Where was the vehicle parked?
It was on the side of the house. If you go Kennesaw, it was like on the side street.
Whose vehicle was this?
I'm not can't. We couldn't determine who the vehicle belonged to or anything.
Okay. So was Mr. Abonse able to get Ms. Rodriguez in the vehicle?
Yes,
What happened after he got her in the car?
they fled from understanding. They took off, and that's when we began our search for Ms. Rodriguez.
Were you able to locate Ms. Rodriguez?
We located well, after a couple of searching and finding Mr. Abonse's real name, the case was handed over to the fugitive task force, and they found her the next morning.
Do you know where she was found?
Yeah, I believe it was Old Dixie, and I'm not sure the other street. It was a cross street with it.
Was Ms. Rodriguez still with Mr. Abonse?
Yes.
Do you know what kind of condition she was in when they located her?
No, from my understanding, the fugitive task force said they both attempted to run, but they was able to speak to Ms. Rodriguez.
Do you know what information, if any, that Ms. Rodriguez provided?
Yes, I spoke to her briefly and asked her if she was okay. Briefly, I asked her what occurred. She told me that Mr. Bonsa had came to the resident and removed her. I asked her, did she want to go with him? At that time, she said no. She didn't want to go with him.
Was Mr. Knowles' wife present in the home when all of this was going on?
Yes, but she was in her room. Due to her medical conditions, I don't think she probably just heard it, but she wasn't up. She takes a lot of medication.
Was Mr. Knowles injured in any way?
No, he wasn't.
When you spoke to Ms. Rodriguez, did she have any visible injuries?
Not that I observed.
Have you been able to interview Mr. Abonse about what happened?
No, I have not.
Do you know if Mr. Abonse made any statements when the fugitives located him?
No, when I spoke when we tried to speak to him on scene, he said he didn't want to speak.
Do you know if whether or not Mr. Abonse caused any damage to the residents when he entered?
No, the door was already open.
At any point during this time, did Mr. Knowles tell Mr. Abonse that he wanted him to leave or that he wasn't welcome in the house?
From my understanding, Mr. Knowles had spoken to Mr. Abonse's prior. He's seen them around and basically told them to stay away from Ms. Rodriguez because she was doing so good.
On this particular day, did Mr. Abonse enter the residence without Mr. Knowles' permission?
Yes, ma'am.
Who contacted the police regarding what happened?
Mr. Jeffrey told his wife to contact the police.
The statement that you got from Mr. Lenny, who was across the street, was it a written statement or a verbal?
It was a written statement, ma'am.
Has that statement been placed into evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
Did Mr. Knowles provide a written statement?
Yes, he did, ma'am.
Has that statement been placed into evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
Did Ms. Rodriguez provide a written statement as well?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
All right, Attorney Rogers, call.
Thank you. Detective, you're the lead on the case, correct?
Yes.
And I know you said that once you got on scene, there were already other officers on scene. Do you know about how long you got there after those officers got there?
Give or take, I can't recall. It was an ongoing thing from the night prior. We was up searching for her all night. We went home, got some rest, and there were still officers. The fugitive task force was still looking for her.
And let me make sure I want to be clear about I'm asking about the incident location, not when the fugitive task force.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I'm asking about is
Okay.
on the day when it's being reported, do you know about how long the other officers have been there?
Nah, I can't, not off the top of my head.
And if I understand correctly, and I'm basing this, I think I've seen officer, and I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, maybe Julius or Julius.
Julius.
Okay. Yeah, so if I understand correctly, I'm not sure, if it's a he or a she, I just know the last name, but Officer Julius did a report. Have you had a chance to review that report?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know, if I understand correctly, I guess Officer Julius would have already talked to basically all the witnesses that you've mentioned, I think had already spoken with Officer Julius, is that correct?
Except Lanny. I spoke to Lanny when I canvassed the area.
Okay. Let me ask, because I understand it's not your report, but I'm just from your site. Let me make sure I'm correct. Because I thought Officer Joseph's report mentions speaking. Yeah, what it says here is the officer spoke with Lenny and he pretty much said the same thing you said.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just want to make sure I was clear on that part. So you were under the impression that was the first conversation he was having?
Yeah, with me, because from my understanding, I was the one that made contact with him. Prior to that, I didn't know if they made contact with them, but he had just arrived on scene and I had spoke to him.
And so when you're talking to them, are they around each other when you're talking to them? Lenny and Jeffrey?
Who?
Lenny and Jeffrey, are they?
No, they're not around each other.
And so if I understand it correctly, I guess let me ask this. Do you know, as far as the interviews that you mentioned, are they recorded in any way as far as with the witnesses that you've mentioned so far?
Yeah, body cam should be on, yes.
And if I understand, I guess, so the report was made by Miss Knowles, the wife of Jeffrey?
No, Jeffrey, the male reported it.
Okay. She's going to call the police.
Yes.
And so, but when you speak to Jeffrey, what he says is that if I understand correctly, a male shows up. Does he know that person?
No.
Says that person asked for Angelica, and then at some point asked to use the restroom. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And he lets this unknown person in to use the restroom also.
From what he stated, yes.
Okay. And then when Angelica sees Mr. Abonse, she goes back inside the house. Where's Mr. Abonse at that point?
By the vehicle.
And where's the vehicle at, I guess, in relation to the doorway?
It's literally right by the house. The house is right next to the sidewalk or the side street, so it's not that far.
You got an estimate about like approximately how far we're talking, like 20 yards?
I say about maybe 10, 15 yards.
And at some point, Mr. Abonse comes in. Well, let me ask, if I'm understanding correctly, that would have been enough time at least to close the door, correct? The distance the time that it takes to go.
Give or take.
And so
Then,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So then once Mr. Abonse shows at the door, he comes, according to Jeffrey's version, he comes in and there's a tussle that occurs at some point between, I guess, involving Jeffrey also.
So once Mr. Abonse runs inside the house, he grabs Miss Rodriguez from Jeffrey's statement, and he tries to get her out the house when Mr. Knowles interferes, and basically that's when the tussle begins, and he basically pushes Mr. Knowles out the way.
And as far as this version of events, the only people who are present at that time, or at least to eyewitness it, are Mr. Knowles, Mr. Abonse, and Ms. Rodriguez. Is that who's there?
Right.
Where do you know where the unidentified male is at that point?
I can't tell you that point. I could. He just told me what he saw going with them coming out the house.
And if I'm not mistaken, I guess at some point you talk to, well, excuse me, not you, but I believe another officer talks to, I think, a friend of Angelica's. Is that correct, Marco Saldana?
Yes, officer that spoke to them before I got there.
And I think somebody else talked to somebody. I guess they think that's her mom, as far as they know.
Miss Rodriguez's mom.
Right.
That's
Yeah, and it's not a trick question. I'm just Joseph's report. What I got here is, looks like Officer Dawes spoke with Angelica's mother very briefly.
Okay.
And so what I'm asking is, I guess, anybody give you any kind of contact info or anything for Angelica herself at that time?
No, because her phone was left at the residence.
And so once they're outside, I guess if I understand correctly, Lenny is watching from, where is he at when he's watching it?
His residence.
And does it, from everything I've seen at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not like Lenny says that she's screaming for help or anything like that, is it?
No, she's just pulling away.
And Lenny doesn't intervene.
No, he doesn't.
And he doesn't call the police either.
No.
And just so I'm clear, there's no allegation of any like striking or punching or anything like that going on?
No, besides him pushing Ms. Rodriguez against the wall.
No further. Well, let me ask this, I guess, just real briefly. I think you said you spoke with Ms. Rodriguez briefly. Did you actually ask her about all of the allegations about the whole account that was given?
No, I asked her was she okay and what had occurred. And she stated that Mr. Abonse had came and removed her out the house. I said, did you want to go with him? And she stated no.
No further questions at this time.
Can you redirect Attorney Freeman?
Judge, the state rests.
All righty. Attorney Rogers?
Yes, ma'am. I have a witness, Ms. Rodriguez. I hope she's still in the waiting
Yeah,
room.
she's in the waiting room. You ready for her?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Detective, you mind putting yours on mute?
Yes, no problem. I'm sorry.
Appreciate it.
All right, she's trying to connect.
And Ms. Rodriguez, can you hear me?
It's still connected to audio on my end for her.
Oh, one moment while we're waiting on her.
Judge, if I could have a moment, I'm going to start trying to send her a message just to see, because I see she's been connecting or trying to connect for a while.
I'm sorry, Attorney Rogers, what did you say?
I was saying if I could have a moment, I'm just going to send her a message just to see if.
Okay.
But, Judge, it looks like she might be having trouble. I see it every now and then. It kind of stops and then goes right back to connecting. Judge, can we have like a brief recess so I can maybe try calling her to see if what's going on?
Yes, please.
But Attorney Rogers just texted me. He's trying to get back in. If you see him at all.
I just let him in.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't able to get in touch with her just now.
Attorney Rogers, I just reached out to her in chat as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Judge, I guess it's kind of unusual. But I was going to see if maybe we could, I guess, if possible, could we maybe handle let the other witness testify on the other hearings? It looks like Ms. Rodriguez is having technical difficulties at the moment.
She haven't, oh, okay, so what are you suggesting we do?
I would, just in the interest of because I'm not sure she's gonna actually, without knowing what's going on that side, I should say, I don't know how long it's gonna take to resolve
Were you able to speak with her?
No, ma'am. No, I haven't been able to. She didn't answer when I called, so I'm not sure what the situation is over there. Ms. Rodriguez, can you hear us? Ms. Rodriguez.
Um, when you're trying to connect, can you get a chat? I'm not sure.
Your Honor, I do show her name in the chat box, and I did reach out to her via chat.
Okay. And no response?
No response.
All righty. So I need
So
to take a quick bathroom break.
understood.
And so, but if she can't get on, then we're gonna have to continue with the hearing.
Understood. Yeah, and I'll take a shot at trying to get it on while I guess if
All righty.